Hello and welcome, everybody. Today on House of Strength podcast, we're going to be talking to Travis Stoetzel, and Travis is a strength coach and athlete, gym owner. I'm going to tell you, he's one of the most relentless, inspiring guys that I know of in the industry, and anywhere really. I look forward to reading this guy's emails every day. He's got some awesome insights on working out, how to be a badass. And Travis, anything you want to add about who you are and let these people know, introduce yourself?
I think you did pretty good job there, real solid. So nothing really to add, but appreciate you having me on, man, and appreciate the kind words, and happy that I'm doing a good job supplying good information. That's when it comes to training, getting stronger and just living the lifestyle. That's what drives me, man. So it's good to hear that, and yeah, you pretty much did a good job.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and joining us today. Um, like I said in the intro, Travis is one of those guys. You know, every single day, you're pushing the limit, doing as much as you can, going as hard as you can, and your website says train and live aggressive, and you're always talking about going hard as possible. So I definitely want to get into that winning mindset with you. What fuels you? How do you keep going like that all the time?
Um, I'll tell you what, it's there's days where just like everybody has, I wake up and you might not be motivated to do this and that, but then you just think about, I guess, kind of the overall the picture of things, like what you're trying to do, and I think a lot about my family. That's one of the number one things that drives me to do what I do every day. But then you start thinking about everybody else, that you're going to have an effect on, and so it just comes down to you taking action, and no matter how big or little the actions that you take on a daily basis, it's going to have an effect on the people wherever that are looking to you for motivation, or whatever it is. So that's one of the main things that keeps me driven, and that's really what it's about, is mindset. You mentioned that's one of the things I talk about as a lot, is live and train aggressive, and so I use training as a vessel to kind of get that word out there. Obviously, training is a big thing to me. Being an ex-athlete and competing in sports, and even though I can't compete in like football and wrestling and things like that, training for me is my sport now. It's what keeps me going, and keeping other people fit, helping them compete in sports, or just even if they're not an athlete, just getting them into the best shape possible, because that's going to cross over into all other parts of their life. So their success with their business or their job, their family life, everything. So what you kind of mentioned is the mindset. So I mean, it all roots back to that. So every day you wake up, you have the decision ultimately yourself to be happy, to decide if you're going to have a good day, and that's really what it comes down to. So you got to kind of have that keyed in on, so to speak, every single day if you're looking to progress ahead. So that's one of the main reasons I focus in on that, is because it's that important. So
That's really cool. I think, and we've talked before, but never specifically about that. So I'm curious to hear what your answer was. But one of the things that I talk about with our members a lot is knowing your why, and connecting to something that's deeper than just, well, I want to
yep.
see the scale go down, or I want to fit into different clothes. Those things are all great goals, and I'm not
Yep.
downplaying those, but on those days, like you said, where it's a little tougher to get out of bed, you've got to have a connection to something deeper. And for
Yep.
some people, it's setting a great example for their son or their daughter, or like you said, also the people who depend on you, and you need to get up and be that man or woman for them on any given day. Do you do anything to? Do you have any kind of routines or tricks that keep you connected to that?
Definitely. And you mentioned that the why. Everybody needs a why, and I remember thinking back the first time that we talked, I think we actually hit in on that and, you know, how important it is. Because at the end of the day, or like you said, the start of the day, when that alarm goes off and you got to get up and you got to do whatever, whether that be get your butt to a training session or get yourself up earlier to get some work done, if you don't have a why, you're just going to roll over, you're just going to push the snooze button. Whereas everything is tied to emotion, everything is tied to mindset. So that's why you have to have a why, and it's unique to everybody. And so, you know, obviously we got to, you know, define what these whys are, and it takes a little bit of time digging deeper and deeper and deeper instead of just, you know, kind of skimming along the surface. And, you know, a lot of people when they first, you know, start, and it's real common, you know, as well as I do, being a gym owner and, you know, having a lot of members, a lot of times when people first come in, that's just what they have on their mind is, okay, I'm going to get myself in shape just because I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. But then when we start to ask them a little bit more and we start to get them to dig a little bit deeper into what their whys are, then things become a little bit more clear. Then you start to find that untapped motivation, you know, that you might not have had before. And so that's really what it's all about, is finding that emotional connection that's going to light that fire. And it's going to relight that fire every time. Because like you asked me right off the bat is how can I, you know, how am I, you know, always going 110% every single day? And like I mentioned, you know, I'm just like anybody else. You know, sometimes I have days where I'm just freaking on fire. My motivation is there. Other days I just feel run down. But what's going to help me and what helps me push through is, you know, revisiting those whys that I have, and they rekindle that fire, and then you're just like, okay, you kind of snap out of it, and then you go. Whereas people that don't have that, that's when they find themselves just motivated, doing nothing, taking the easy road out. And the sad truth is, you know, most of the population, they're not tapped into their why. It's because they don't really know about it. So I think it's our job, you know, with what we do is to, you know, spread the word about this stuff and help people, you know, figure out what their whys are, so they're more driven to do, you know, bigger and better things, because we all have so much potential. But kind of I got off on a tangent there, but going back to the original question, what do I do? I have I've been doing this for close to 2 years. It's called a 5-minute journal, and one of my buddies sent me a couple journals a couple years ago. And basically what it is right when you wake up, you open up your journal and you write there's a couple different things that you do. So number one, you like write down a couple things that would make that day, you know, a great day. So already you're kind of getting in the positive mindset of like, what would make today great? And then you write something down. So that could be anything for anybody. It's all unique to you. And so, for example, I might say, you know, have a bunch of clients come in, you know, set some new PRs. That would make the day great. Or, you know, take my dog for a walk. Or it could be something that small. Or, you know, take my wife out to dinner or whatever. And it's just getting you in that positive mindset. And then there's a section where you do daily affirmations. And basically you just kind of, what a daily affirmation, or what an affirmation is just telling yourself something and just kind of acting as if it was like true, and it's kind of just telling yourself something and like believing in it 110%. So like it could be something as simple as like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be the best strength coach, you know, in Omaha or whatever. I'm going to go above and beyond for my clients today. And again, it's just kind of reinforcing that positive mindset. And so you always start your day off with that, and then you come back at night and you kind of reflect on the past day, and then you write down 2 or 3 things that you thought were awesome that day. So again, it could be as big or as small as you want it to be. So it could be, you know, I saw somebody I haven't seen for a couple of years, and, you know, I had a conversation with them, you know, and what's cool about this is you can kind of flip through your journal over time, and you'll see all these different days, and it's really cool because you kind of remember the days and stuff like that. But so you reflect on 3 things that happened that day that were good, and then you talk about what could have made the day better. So say you made a mistake with your diet or something like that, and so what you'd do is you'd write down, instead of saying, like, oh, I shouldn't have had that piece of chocolate cake, or I shouldn't have had those extra beers, you would write it like as if you already did it. So you'd write something like, next time I'm not going to have that chocolate cake, or next time I'm going to pass up those extra beers and I'm going to stay on my diet until the weekend or something like that. But the 5-minute journal, check it out. I believe the website's 5minutejournal.com, but
Yeah, that's
I actually had a chance to talk to UJ, who's one of the co-creators of that. Awesome dude. But really, that's what it's all about, is just kind of getting in a routine so you start and end your day on positive notes. You know, no matter what, if the day like went bad, kind of reflecting back on like the good things that happened, you know, it'll kind of, it's just kind of how the mind works. So, you know, you never want to go to bed or fall asleep like in a bad mood, or like, you know, if something bad happened, you want to try to get that stuff off your mind.
right.
And you know, you'll have a better sleep, and so to speak. But
That
that's one of the main routines that I've been doing.
Yeah, that's an awesome habit, and I think that's a great tip for everybody listening. You know, and I think we haven't talked about this yet, but for everybody listening, you know, this will be posted in video form on the blog, and underneath of that we'll have show notes. So the 5-minute journal and the link to that website, we have that on the website, on the blog underneath of the video. So anything that Travis or I mentioned that will help listeners, you know, you guys can always go there to get the links. You don't have to write this down especially if you're listening to the podcast as you drive or anything like that. But one of the things that kind of popped into my head as you were going through that was that, you know, a lot of people, I guess it's a common misconception that just some people have it in terms of the mindset and being able to be up all the time and positive, and other people don't. And I don't think anything could be farther from the truth. I think people, you know, like yourself, like me, we have to practice it. It's a skill that we've learned and honed over time because we have put habits in place, just like the one that you explained, where, you know, I think every successful person that I've ever talked to has some sort of routine or ritual where they practice gratitude or positivity or count blessings. You know, that's a great habit. If you don't do that yet or now, definitely get in the habit of doing that. Take the one that Travis just mentioned there, the 5-minute journal. You know, one that I do is I set an alarm on my phone a couple of times a day, 8 a.m., 12, 3, 8 p.m. that goes off, and it just asks a question, different question every time. Could be, what's perfect right now? What am I grateful for? You know, how has my day been blessed? Or what have I done to make others better today? Things like that. You can customize that to whatever you want it to be, whatever time you think you need to see that every day.
Yeah, that's good.
So, you know, another thing that I think is a common misconception is that, or I guess a problem that a lot of people have with mindset is getting overwhelmed by the magnitude of whether it's a transformation or a task or an obstacle in front of them. For those of you guys that don't know, Travis just competed in the CrossFit Open and advanced, qualified for regionals. So I know I read your emails. I follow how you look at what's ahead, break it down into manageable chunks, and kind of develop a game plan. So tell us a little bit about how you, first of all, your experience with the Open and what's coming up with regionals. But how do you look at the big picture and then kind of break it down into bite-sized, manageable pieces?
Well, as far as like, I guess training in that regard, obviously you got the big picture, so you got your big goal here. And for me, it's, you know, to compete. It was to get through the Open. I guess the number one thing is belief. Like, you got to believe that you can get yourself there. Because if you embark on any type of goal and you go into it and you're like, well, I've talked to a lot of people that, you know, did the Open, and I mean, before the thing even started, they're like, I'm not going to do very well. You know, I'm just not trying to get last place, or, you know, stuff like that. And it's like, if you go in with an attitude like that, like, you probably are going to get last place and you're not going to do very well. So number one thing is just you got to believe that you can do far beyond what you're potentially, you know, thinking that you can do. So for me going in, my goal is to, you know, make it to the regionals, and then, you know, ultimate goal is to make it to the game. So you kind of reverse engineer everything. So you got to think about like, okay, to get myself here, I'm going to have to, you know, be at a certain level. So you kind of break it down into small chunks, look at like the amount of time that you have. And I mean, programming, it gets so far in depth, but when it comes down to it, you just got to take it one day at a time, because that's all you can do. I mean, it's impossible to do so much at once. So you just got to take it one workout at a time. For any type of, you know, training goal, whatever that may be, just focus in on the task at hand. And I think that's the biggest thing that people, you know, that messes people up, is they get all overwhelmed. You know, they're trying to do so many different things at once. So multitasking, this goes with like business. And I can tell you this, like probably 3 years ago, that was my kind of thought process. Like, I need to be multitasking all the time. If I multitask, I'll get, you know, tons of stuff done. When it came down to like business and things like that, I never got anything done, you know, because you're like getting like 10% of all these different things done. And that's all you have, is you have a lot of things done, but they're only done 10%, right? So a lot of people do that with their training too. And being online for, you know, 4 or 5 years now, having a lot of different programs that I've put out, I think that's a huge problem with people, is they get like program ADD or just workout ADD, and they're more focusing on the workout of the day versus like the big picture thing. So for me, with the open and the regionals and CrossFit as a sport, because it is a sport now, you got to focus in on the big picture, and you got to take it one day at a time, and you got to focus in on one thing at a time, instead of, okay, I'm going to do this today, and then I'm going to do this tomorrow, and you're just kind of all over the place. So you got to be organized, big time. I mean, we can do a whole podcast call just about like programming, you know,
Yeah.
but just a bird's eye view. You know, you got to look at where you're trying to get to, and just break it down, and kind of go backwards in a sense, and, you know, start from the end and work forward from there.
Yeah, almost like a roadmap, and you know, you are at
Yep.
point A, you want to get to point B, and how do you get from here to here, or
Yep.
more
Yep.
like A to Z, and you got to hit every point along the way.
Yep.
Um, as far as CrossFit goes, I mean, I know a lot of people will do CrossFit as their workout of the day is prescribed.
Mhm.
I don't think that's your style. I'm under the impression that you personally do a lot of how you run your gym, which I'm familiar with, and
Yep.
I know you've got some great programs out there. We've got a couple of them, and I know we've talked about your latest one, Unbreakable Badass Blueprint 2.0, and that's kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've taken kind of what has helped you be successful and advance from the open to regionals, and kind of implemented that both in your gym and in these programs.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess when it comes to CrossFit, like I've always kind of been on the outside looking in regards to like what CrossFit is. I'm not an affiliated gym. Um, I have nothing against CrossFit or anything like that. I just have a lot against like shitty coaches, and, you know, coaches that are just about kind of what we just talked about, like random workout of the day, take no respect in regards to like form and technique. And that's everything. That's everything, no matter if you're trying to compete in CrossFit as a sport, or if you're just doing CrossFit in general, or just doing general strength and conditioning program. Form and technique need to be number one. And when we're thinking about that, strength is like got to be one of the number one components right there. You know, so a lot of people skip over the strength component. So my philosophy of training, what we do in my gym and everything like that, unless you're like, you got a specific goal. So let's say like you're a football player, or, you know, you're a wrestler, volleyball player, something like that. They're doing specific programs for that, and it's not a CrossFit style workout. It's not going to be random workouts of the day, because we need to be structured with that stuff. And so that's one aspect of training that we do. And then the main type of training that we do is what I like to call controlled chaos. So I mentioned the strength. That's kind of your control. So we're very, very progressive with that. We're constantly focusing on, you know, strength work, progressive. Okay, so the way I like to design it is we go in like 4-week mini cycles. So we're always doing the same stuff over and over and over as far as like strength work goes, but then the chaos end of that's where we start to mix up things a little bit in regards to like the conditioning work that we do. And there's a lot of different ways that you can go in regards to like conditioning, but that's the part of the workout where that's going to kind of get you ready for the unknown, so to speak. So we could be doing heavy conditioning circuit that might be focusing on strength again, or we might do, a super light conditioning circuit that's focusing on nothing but endurance. So like, mid-distance running or something like that. But that's the general layout of what we do. There's always a controlled aspect to that, and then we got our little chaos end of things that I like to call our daily battle plan. So that's always constantly changing up. But again, it's got to be specific to your goal. And so I think something that's been going on with like CrossFit in general is you got people that are, and I'm all for like competing and going after performance, but you got to understand like CrossFit as the sport is an actual sport now, so you got to take it like serious as like just as if you're going to play football and train for football. And then there's CrossFit, just CrossFit training for like general fitness. And I've seen some gyms, they got members coming in and they're brand new, fresh off the street. They're looking to just get into shape, but since their coach or trainer thinks, hey, we're a CrossFit gym, CrossFit Games and all this stuff, I'm going to throw everybody in the mix. We're all going to do the CrossFit Open. And that's when you start to run into some troubles. People aren't ready for that. There's people that should be doing CrossFit for fitness, and then there's a whole, you got to be kind of advanced, so to speak, to, really kind of hone in on, CrossFit as the sport.
Yeah.
So I think people kind of mix that up. They think CrossFit, so they blend it all together instead of kind of separating it out into two separate things, which it should be, because like I mentioned, like CrossFit, the sport of fitness, I mean, it's here. And just like with any sport, you got to get specific with your training. So, but that's kind of a general overview of what we do.
That's you mentioned that CrossFit is now a sport just like football or anything else, and I've seen recently where there is a professional league now, and they have combines. Yeah. That's to me that's crazy. Are you going to get into that?
Right now, my focus is just regionals. My training partner and I'm pretty sure my partner will get asked, or he'll go try out for a team, but it's serious stuff. I mean, they're going to pay salaries.
Yeah, how's that going to work? Break that down for us.
As far as I know, can't tell you the exact details, but as far as I know, it's going to be like a professional sport team. So I think the rosters will carry 21 people, and or 24 athletes maybe, like 12 girls, 12 guys. Don't quote me on that, but I mean, yeah, I don't know how the setup will be yet, but there's main cities that have teams, and teams will compete against one another. They'll have a season, yeah. They'll have a playoff, and then they'll have like a Super Bowl. And players will be getting paid, and it'll be like an actual sport. So in that regard, when you're a paid athlete, then you're doing everything. I mean, you're designing your lifestyle around that sport.
Right.
So, I mean, you're not going to be having another job and different things like that. And so that's another thing that makes competing in CrossFit, because, I mean, the sport in itself has evolved so much. Even like back in 2011 when I went to the regionals for the first time, like I hadn't been doing any CrossFit style workouts. I had only been like working out once a day, like 5 days a week, versus now I'll do like two a day sessions and stuff like that. And I'm blessed to be able to, have a gym so I can, work out whenever I want on my own boss. I kind of make my own hours, so I'm flexible like that. But,
right.
I mean, as far as the, CrossFit as a sport, it's gotten nuts. So, I mean, if you're wanting to compete at the next level, you almost have to have the ability to have the extra free time to like train a couple times a day, put in the extra because it's a sport. I mean,
Yeah, I
if
mean
you're going to compete at a high level,
that's
you know,
you're legitimately competing against professionals. I mean, I
yeah,
don't want to call you an amateur because I think you're anything but an amateur. But if you're competing in the regionals or the open against these guys who are pros,
yeah,
you're maybe not you specifically, but a lot of people are going to be at a disadvantage because they don't have the resources, to, like you said, work out as often, or the recovery portion. I know you just
yeah,
mentioned that you've gone. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who struggle to find the time to work out 5 times a week, and you're saying
yeah.
now that you've upped it to twice a day and multiple times a week. So recovery's got to be a huge part of your game. What are some of the things that you're doing to recover and stay healthy?
Always drinking water. That's number one. Probably one of the biggest things overlooked with a lot of people. Hydration, hydration, hydration. Got to do it because I mean, if your body's at all dehydrated, then right there your performance is going to drop down. And that's huge. So you got to keep yourself hydrated. For me, I try to always have this with me, and because if it's easy for people to forget to drink water. I mean, even if you're like at work or whatever, like that's one of the things I tell all my clients to do is always have a water bottle within, arm's reach. And if it's empty, make sure you fill it up. So hydration is number one. Sleep is huge. Sleep is another thing that people overlook, and that's something I've been battling, with the new addition with the family. I think if you can get at least 6 hours a night, you should be good. Especially when you're combining that with good nutrition. But it's not just about like foam rolling, stretching, and different things like that. Like sleep and hydration are like the biggest things. Like sleep, like hydration. So people overlook that so much. And if you want better results, start shutting the TV off at night and getting yourself into bed earlier. So sleep's huge. And like I mentioned, nutrition is big time. So
Well, let's
in regards to recovery and stuff like that.
let's get into your diet a little bit if you don't mind. But before we do, the cutting off the TV, the sleep, and the hydration is becoming a theme. I think you're the second or third person who's mentioned how important that is. So if you're listening and you haven't heeded that advice yet, now's the time. Turn off the TV at night, get in bed, get sleep, drink more water. So all right, enough. We'll get off the soapbox. So nutrition wise, what kind of stuff are you doing? Got to have
For me,
massive energy demands.
yeah. So for me, I got a paleo base. So
Move it.
in other words, it's just whole, real, natural foods. You got to focus in on that. So little to no processed foods at all. However, I'm not like 100% diehard paleo or anything like that. Paleo is great in regards to like how you should be eating like in general. So I used to say like 80-20 rule, but some people tend to like kind of abuse that because if you think about it, 80-20, you get an 80% on a test or in a class, that's like a B. I think that's like a C in some grading scales,
Yeah, in
but
my high
I
school
mean,
that was a
you're like
C.
think about it, like B minus C on your nutrition. Are you going to be getting great results with that? Probably not. So I've actually switched my philosophy over to kind of a 90-10 setup, and you can still have a very enjoyable lifestyle with that. And so try to stick to that rule. I mean, you're still throwing in some cheat meals there because you got that 10% leeway, but across the board, it's kind of a paleo base. So like your lean meats, lots of vegetables, some nuts and seeds. I'm not a huge like seeds person or nuts person. I'll do like nut butters and stuff like that. But I usually get like my healthy fats from like, egg yolks, avocado, stuff like
Are
that.
you a high fat guy when it comes to that?
Yes, because when I'm not eating, starchy carbs, I'm usually mixing in, some sort of healthy fat in there,
Gotcha.
um, in exchange for that. So I eat my starchy carbs. I'll have white rice, sweet potatoes. And I usually reserve that stuff just for around my workout. So I'll always have it right after a workout. I'll have like a banana. You know, I don't eat too much fruit, so I usually just stick to bananas, apples. I'm just not a huge fruit guy. I'm not going to sit down with like a bowl of fruit. It's just
Yeah.
not. You know, I usually only eat fruit like right after a workout just for that quick energy. But yeah, as far
You
as
said two things there I want to elaborate on the carbs
yeah,
because I'm right there with you. As an athlete, you're definitely going to need more starchy carbs than the average person, and we definitely want to say post workout is the best time to get them. Your body's going to be most responsive then. You mentioned white rice, and I know a lot of people are going to say, well, wait a minute, I thought brown rice was healthier. And personally, when I eat rice, it's white as well. I think people have heard my version of why. So tell us why you do white rice.
well, again, the starchy carbs that I eat them for one purpose only, and that's to recover and refuel, you know, after my workout. So I want to get those, starches, the glycogen, so to speak, right back into my body as fast as possible. And white rice is going to digest very, very quickly because it's like pure starch. Whereas brown rice, yeah, it's been said to be like, healthier than white rice, but it digests a lot slower. And so it's kind of actually detrimental in a sense to eat that right after workout because it's going to be slower digesting. So if like your main goal is like recovery, then you're going to want to go to white rice. So that's my main reason that I've gone to white rice. I mean, I'm not kicking brown rice. Like I'm not saying don't eat
All
it,
right,
but
I'll kick
if
it.
your
I'll
main
kick it
goal,
for you.
it's going to be a better option.
I'll kick the brown
So,
for you because the part that makes it brown is the outer shell,
yep.
and that's been removed to make the white rice. That outer portion is undigestible, and it actually has anti-nutrient properties when it gets in your body and can cause small lesions in your digestive tract, causes leaky gut syndrome. You'll
Yep.
leach nutrients, and we want to avoid that because it's about as bad and nasty as it sounds. So
Mhm.
that's another reason to go for brown rice or white rice over brown rice. So awesome.
Definitely, man.
Well, I know at one point you played with some intermittent fasting. Do you still do that?
Yep, I still do. And
So
when I first got on it,
for somebody who doesn't know
I
what that is, kind of break that down.
yeah. Um, Easiest way I break it down to people that are brand new to it is just think of it like a sprint interval. And so you're gonna like sprint as hard as you can, for a certain amount of time, and then you're just gonna walk for a certain amount of time. So apply that to like eating. So intermittent fasting is basically eating for a short period of time and then not eating for an extended period of time. So um, best setup that I've used and um, everybody else that I've put on it have used is a 16-8 setup. So you're going to fast or not eat for 16 hours, and then that'll give you an 8-hour window to get all your food in, basically. And so it works awesome for people that if your goal is like just strict like body composition, like losing fat, building some muscle, and you don't really care too much about performance, like your performance isn't going to suffer, a ton, but it will suffer um, with intermittent fasting a little bit. But I mean, bird's eye view, that's what it is. So you're gonna, eat for 16 hours, and then you're gonna refuel your body for 8 hours, and you can do that, 3 times a week. You can do it up to 7 days a week, which is um, when I was into it, I was doing 7 days a week, just because that's how my schedule worked out. It worked great. I'm busy in the morning, and so I can wake up and easiest way to do it is you're just going to skip out on breakfast because if you think about it, let's say you went to bed for 7 hours, or you got 8 hours of sleep at night. So all you got to do is skip breakfast and kind of extend that fast out because you already slept 8 hours. Just go another 8 hours and then you'll just eat later in the day. So whether that be at like noon or 1 o'clock, you just start having your meals there. And there's a specific way you can set it up to make it, most effective, so to speak, in terms of like timing out your macros, like when to eat your fats, carbs, and proteins and all that different stuff. But bird's eye view, that's basically what intermittent fasting is. And like I said, at one time I was doing 7 days a week, fasting for at least 16 hours at a time. And I was seeing really great results of that. My energy was up. But I've switched that up. I only do that 2 times a week now, and they're only on my off days.
That's
And
That was going
so,
to be a follow-up question I had because I know you said that with intermittent fasting, the performance can suffer, and I was going to, especially
yep,
since you said that you were working out twice a day, I can't
yep,
imagine that you would want to have a strenuous, stressful lift
yeah,
in a fasted state and then not
yeah, yeah,
have any kind of recovery. So the 2 days a week that you're not lifting are your fasting days.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, with the volume of training that I'm doing, the intensity, all that stuff, I just got to keep myself fueled up all throughout the day. So I'm more kind of on like a performance-based eating template. So I'm eating breakfast, I'm eating post-workout meals. Got to get those in because the number one focus is recovery. And like I mentioned, if your number one focus isn't recovery and it isn't performance, and it's more on like body composition and like just getting shredded, losing fat fast, and you can actually build muscle as well when you do things right with intermittent fasting. Um, it works well, but your performance will suffer. So right now for me, I'm maximizing performance with everything. So intermittent fasting doesn't work into my regular lifestyle. However, like I mentioned, I do it 2 times a week where I'll fast just until like 12 or 1 o'clock, just because I get a lot of stuff done on my off days. I don't have to train in the morning, so I'm just like focusing on getting work done. And so instead of like breaking your morning up and having to like cook a meal or something like that, let's just grab a small cup of black coffee, some athletic greens right first thing in the morning, and then just getting some work done. Then you don't have to worry about anything until like 1 or 2.
Have you tried the bulletproof coffee? I'm sure you've heard of that with the
Oh yeah,
butter and coconut oil or MCT oil.
I did. I actually did it for a while with the MCT oil, and I learned the hard way, like what happens when you put too much MCT oil
Okay.
on there.
Yeah.
But that stuff's legit. I think is that you got some MCT
Yeah,
oil and
yeah, that's
stuff right behind
yeah,
you there.
yeah, that's I follow
Yeah.
that. Pretty much. You said 16:8. Mine's kind of
Yep.
maybe 4 to 6 on the open window, and
Yep.
then instead of a straight fast in the morning, bulletproof coffee. So
Yeah.
2 to 3 tablespoons of grass-fed butter, or I actually use
Yep.
ghee, 'cause it doesn't have any of the milk proteins, and then
Yep.
MCT oil. So, um,
Awesome.
but I'm fortunate, kind of like you are, where I can lift in the most advantageous time. So, I'll usually put my lift right before my window of eating so that I can have kind of a little bit of a pre-workout meal,
Yep.
still lift in a semi-fasted state where I'll just have just enough protein and some more either coconut oil or MCT oil, and then immediately go into that eating window so I can get the recovery nutrients and extend that for another couple of hours and then shut it down and repeat that
Sure.
process. So,
Yeah, I will add in when I was intermittent fasting, um, I still saw some great gains in strength and performance overall when I was just training 1 time in a day and my volume wasn't as much. And the way I would set it up is I would always train early in the morning, and so I'd be in a fasted state, and I try to push my training session out a little bit further. So like try to have it at like 10:30, 11 o'clock. So when I'd finish, I'd be able to have like a post-workout
yeah,
meal. Like right when I was done, I'd be able to break my fast right then. When I couldn't do that and I had to train like first thing in the morning, I would make sure the night before I would like, have a huge meal, and they call it like carb
yeah,
backloading. And so basically what you'd want to do then is like have a ton of protein, and you'd want to make it like lean protein because you're going to mix that with a bunch of carbs. So like your starchy carbs. So like a bunch of chicken and rice. And people, a lot of times when I first heard this, like I was always under the, oh, don't eat carbs at night. You're going to store it all as body fat. And, it takes a lot longer for it to store it for body fat. If you were to not do anything the next day, then you might have some issues. But since you're waking up first thing in the morning, you're going to actually use the glycogen from all the starches that you ate the night before to fuel you through your workout. And so you kind of use that to your advantage. And that actually worked out pretty well for me when I was doing intermittent fasting on my like training days. But like I said, I mean, there's so many different ways you can mix it up, and you know, I mean, you got to dial things in, and as far as like macronutrient timing goes to really get the max benefits out of it. But intermittent fasting is definitely good, but you just gotta, like we were talking about the start, like things got to be specific to, you know, what you're trying to do. So
Exactly.
like, what are your goals? Reverse engineer from there. Is that going to work best?
Right.
You know, kind of figure things
I mean,
out.
if my goal was what yours is in terms of my training right now, there's no way I'd be able to eat the way I'm eating. And you know, one thing that I'll definitely say with that intermittent fasting approach is that the mental sharpness, focus, clarity in the mornings is insane. And if you're getting
Yeah.
work done or doing work like you mentioned, and I know that's how my day is set up, I wouldn't trade that for the world. But you know, I also think you said something about carb backloading. One of our other guests on the podcast here, this is episode 2, it was John Gaglione. He's a power lifter, and he follows a form of
Yep.
that carb backloading. And
Cool.
you know, there's really something to that. And with intermittent fasting, I think one of the mistakes that most people make when they try the intermittent fasting and have struggles is that they don't eat enough in that window.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people they simply can't eat enough in that window. So again, like you said, it's a very individual thing. You know, you've got to experiment with things and see that n equals 1. You know, it's a one person experiment. You've got to try different things, see what works for you, and you know. So one other quick question for you on that: have you experienced negative effects with women using the fasting approach?
Oh, like having
Yeah,
women doing
yeah,
it. It's hard to say because we did have a transformation challenge in my gym last time around this time of year. It was kind of introducing the whole fasting to everybody, and the people that went through it, our women had awesome results with it. So um, there was one gal. I think she was just like, again, it's got to be specific to your lifestyle. Her lifestyle was just like outside of the gym was like super
right.
stressful, and so she was taking on all this stress. And intermittent fasting, it is stressful on the body in a way. Um, so you just got to kind of look at the factors with that. But ultimately, what intermittent fasting does is it kind of optimizes your body. It re-optimizes your body, and it utilizes different hormones and things like that inside the body. So that's one of the main reasons you do it. But if you're taking on a bunch of extra stress in regards to that, like, you know, your results aren't going to be as great.
Yeah,
But
in that case, you're
to
probably
answer that question too.
stressing your body more than what it can recover from.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know we're kind of running out of time here, so let's do this. Where can everybody find you? I know we said earlier, Jim's website is forgedathlete.com, and your
Yep.
personal site, travisstoetzel.com, right?
Yep.
We'll have both of those links in the show notes. And anything else, any other links or places you want people to go to be able to find you?
My name is kind of hard to spell, so you can go to trainaggressive.com too, and that'll actually redirect to my main website here soon. So
Spell your name
people can go
for us
there
real
too.
fast.
Last name is Stoe. T is in Tom, Z is in zebra, E-L.
Right. So
Yep.
if people go there, they can get a little bit more information on intermittent fasting, how to up their days. Of
Oh
course,
yeah.
the
Um,
Unbreakable Badass Blueprint 2.0 we talked about.
yep. Just I got all kinds of blog posts on there. If they go through the archives, there's posts where I've put up like how I eat on training days. There's posts how I eat on, you know, non-training days, all that different type of stuff. So
What I'll do is I'll send you an email after we finish this, and before it gets posted, I'll get you to send me links to those posts if you can, and
yep,
people can just go right to them.
yep,
Awesome. Well, the
will
last
do.
thing is has got to answer 2 questions before they leave, and So I guess it's one question with two parts. Going to be we kind of covered it today, but I guess we'll kind of center it. So one tip from you on that winning mindset, and then just in general how to kick more ass, badass blueprint. So how can people be more?
Okay, so first question was how to focus in on.
Hone in or for that winning mindset.
Okay, well, for that, we talked about it at the start. You got to figure out what your why is, and you got to dig deep and find what that emotional connection is. And because with that, you can be one of the most powerful people in the world. Without it, uh, you know, you're going to be limited to, subpar results. And have the mindset of, go 110% ham. That's what I always talk about. It's one of our main slogans that we say, and basically it means go hard as a mother. I don't know if this is G-rated, but it's a mindset that you have in training. It's a mindset you have in life. With whatever you do, go 110%. Because honestly, like I mentioned, this sad thing is with like most of the population these days, like everybody settles for like just good enough. People settle for just to be the average person, and nobody's like stepping up, above, the freaking, moderation line. And so have the mindset of going 110% ham with anything you do, and say, screw being average, screw being normal, and think about that. Are you taking the easy road out like everybody else does, or are you freaking, asking for it not to be easy, so it's going to challenge you and push you and get you better? So you got to think about that. And then I guess what will keep you motivated is just try to be better, just 1% better than you were the last day. Progress, progress, progress. No matter how big or small it is, that's what you got to focus on every single day. Is just getting better. Do something that's going to move you towards your goals. You know what I mean?
I love that. I love it. That's well. So the second part of that then is, like, if you can only get, aside from the one you just gave them, what would you say? Because the one you just gave them is gold. That's going to be top. But if you got anything else,
I would say be grateful for, you. Think about, I guess, like in hard times and different things like that, people tend to get in these bad mindsets, and you got to think about, like, it could always be a lot worse than it is, And so you got to be grateful for, who you are, and you got to know that you were put here to do something great. So don't leave that to waste. Whatever that is that you were put here to do, you got to do it. You can't just sit around and do nothing. So I guess you got to think about that.
Travis, man, thanks again for coming on the show. Listening, make sure you go to House of Strength. That is our website. You will, with all the show notes, all the links to everything that Travis. Make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, a review. Let us know that podcast. If you have questions, if you have topics that you'd like us to get on, we will see you next time.